Hello, I'm Harkrish and welcome back to my channel. This is Week Roundup episode 1 where I recap all the sports that I watch around the world in the previous week and also give some tidbits and updates about the other sports and the other matches that I did not watch. Let's just begin without any further ado. Football, let's just start over with the EPL first because the 4 out of the 5 matches that I saw this weekend were in the EPL and one from La Liga. So let's just get over with the EPL or the English Premier League first. Start up with Liverpool versus Burnley, where Liverpool won easily 2-0 and really made a statement that they were actually Premier League contenders. Liverpool started with their usual 4-3-3 formation by Klopp, with the backline being Tsimikas, Van Dijk, Matip, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, Naby Keita in midfield, and Elliott in midfield. Also Henderson was there, and the front line consisting of the usual Salah on the right wing and Mane on the left wing, and Jota in the center, who was still preferred over Firmino. Also, the fact that Tsimikas was still in the starting 11 because Robertson has not returned still in the starting 11. Tsimikas was actually playing really well this time around, and he took something away from the Norwich game, it seems, because against the Norwich defense he was literally spun at times. But here he was pretty calm, pretty consolidated most of the match, and even put the first goal assist for Liverpool when Naby Keita gave it to him on the left flank, and it was a really beautiful cross. And Jota just just headed it in for Liverpool. After that, one goal on each side of the two halves was given offside, one from Mohamed Salah for Liverpool and one from Burnley. The second goal for Liverpool came through a Mane high kick when Trent Alexander-Arnold put the ball in front of him through a very clever play from Elliott and him. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold was brilliant throughout the game. He had really incisive passes and made really good contributions by crossing and creating chances actually, and was good defensively as well, looked calm and consolidated. Also, I think Harvey Elliott went as the unnoticed man in this game, and he was really just driving the midfield. I think he is a proper good player, I think, for Klopp. I think he could be the one who Liverpool thought Thiago could be. Also, the fact that he is energetic and creative brings a whole new dimension to the Liverpool midfield. Because when they had Jorginho, Wijnaldum, Henderson, and Fabinho, they lacked some creativity from the midfield and relied heavily on their fullbacks. I think Harvey Elliott brings that touch of creativity in their midfield. I think it was a pretty dominant display from Liverpool, aside from some chances that Burnley created and troubled Alisson with, which he dealt really well from. On the transition, I think Burnley were pretty much uh, backed off by Liverpool for the entire game. Pretty consolidating win from Liverpool, and I don't think that any of their players put a foot wrong in this game. Pretty consolidating win. Manchester United versus Southampton was a pretty peculiar match, as of I think that Manchester United changed their lineup first of all from that 5-1 thumping of Leeds the previous match day, and brought in Matic for McTominay. I think McTominay was due for a surgery also. I heard it recently. And they also brought in Martial for Daniel James, who was very wasteful in the first game against Leeds, and played him in the centre forward position with Greenwood shifting to the right hand side. I think that United were pretty sloppy in the first 10 to 15 minutes, giving chances to Southampton, but they proceeded on to dominate most of the first half. I think Pogba was the star of that half. I think he created numerous chances, even had a dribble a very good dribble and just scoffed the chance. I think in the end, I think the set pieces from Manchester United were really good. Attacking wise, I think defensively they still look kind of vulnerable on the set pieces, but I think that going offensive, their set pieces were really good, and Pogba was on the end of it. I think Pogba was really good this game. Um, the goal for Southampton came in the first half only when uh, the ball was snatched from Bruno and he protested for a free kick, and all of the United defense concentration just shifted, and he drove in a cross which Armstrong cleverly just flicked on to Shea Adams, who shot, and it took a very high deflection from Fred, and ended up in the back of the net. And David De Gea had no chance because Shea Adams had shot it pretty much in front of him, and it went into the corner afterwards. United came back to scrape one goal through clever play of Bruno and Pogba, and Pogba in the end laid it off for Greenwood, and Greenwood just shot it low and rising. I think that it was a pretty good shot, and it was so powerful that the goalkeeper could not save it. It went between his legs, and they just managed to scrape one, because I think that United looked pretty slow this game. Uh, and Pogba and De Gea really saved this game for Manchester United. De Gea making some really crucial saves. I think the United defense was somewhat vulnerable this whole game, and I think their midfield is really prone to errors with Matic and Fred. Also, I think for Southampton, Unepo on left mid, I think, and uh, Livramento on the right back position were really good. I think Livramento made many runs on the right hand side and looked pretty good, I think. And I think just that United just managed 1 point and from this game, which should have been more from them. I think that they need to start Varane and Sancho the next game to have a chance at the Premier League this time around. Chelsea visited the Emirates this time around in an away game with Arsenal and really made an impression that actually cemented them as the Premier League contenders, which they already were, I think. And Tuchel started with their new signing Lukaku and also made some changes in their lineup. I think Pulisic caught COVID, so he was replaced with Havertz, and um, Chaloba was not started, and Reece James was in the right wing position, and consequently Cesar Azpilicueta became a right centre back in their lineup. For Arsenal, Rob Holding came in for Ben White, I think, who also had a positive COVID case, and uh, Saka made his first start of the season after coming on as a bench warmer in the previous game against Brentford. Arsenal looked really toothless in the first half. They aimlessly just went on to wide areas. They did not create any chances. They were just looking to get the ball and cross it, get the ball and cross it, which is not how you create chances. I think Lukaku was terrific in this game, and on the counter, Chelsea were really good with their one-touch counter-attacking passes. I think that the first goal and or the second goal too came with only this counter-attacking, fast counter-attack and one-touch passes. I think that Arsenal's left backs and right backs, I think the full backs actually came more centrally, and their wingers did not track back enough, which gave the likes of Reece James on the right side pretty much acres of space from which they could cross and score goals, which happened two times. Reece James put a cross in for Lukaku to tap it in for the first goal, and the second goal, Reece James had acres of space in front of Leno and just really well finished it. So, pretty good game. I think Arsenal still looked better in the second half, but I think if you were that bad in the first half, anything looks better. They were still kind of aimless, but I think that Saka and Smith Rowe, their number 10, were the only like highlights of their play. I think they both are gems in a team which sadly doesn't seem to compete enough. They don't have that quality. I think um, they were really bad, and I think Chelsea were too good for them on this day. So Chelsea win convincingly 2-0. Leicester versus West Ham was a game filled with goals from either side, but one side I think dominated the other most of the time. Leicester were pretty slow, and I think Suchek and Amarty, which their centered and their central defenders were just passing the ball to themselves. I think I'd seen literally like 60 passes the whole game or more even, just between the two of them, and they had a lot of touches without any end product. I think that Leicester were okay in the first half, but not as fast and as good in the transitions from defense to attack, or from possession to fast play, and just getting crosses in or getting good balls or creating chances. They were pretty slow, and they looked like uh, blocked, and I think that was pretty much West Ham's elite defensive midfield partnership from Suchek and Rice. Rice, especially on the day, was really good. I think he was everywhere on the pitch. I think blocking the passes from Leicester, and blocking their creative chances, defending well, and making chances for West Ham. I think that they were really good. And the first goal came from Pablo Fornals in the 26th minute, where he just he just, with a quick play, where he just passed it on to the wing, and made a good run in the center of the box, and tapped it in essentially. And West Ham were 1-0 up at that point, and I think Leicester were okay, and the only good points in the first half for them were Harvey Barnes and James Maddison. Those were two were really good, especially Harvey Barnes. From the looks of it, he looked really comfortable when he dribbled past defenders. I think he was the one making those fast runs. But unfortunately, Ayoze Perez, who was also kind of alright the game, got the red card for an absolutely horrific, or not. I cannot decide upon that, because he was stumbling on, but he really made a dangerous tackle, kind of accidentally, and got the red card got a straight red for it when the VAR checked, and so he was off. In the second half, I think West Ham pretty much how they were expected to performed how they were expected to, just dominated Leicester in possession, and all the creative chances and all the touches. I think that was expected, and Ben Rama didn't take it long to make it 2-0. But there was a time when West Ham kind of switched off and got Leicester in the game, which had a consequence of Leicester scoring one goal through Yuri Tielemans, who was kind of average on the day. I think NDD was good, but Yuri Tielemans was not that good, especially in passing. And that was kind of a direct consequence from how good Rice was on the day. But all hopes of them returning from a 2-0 defeat to somewhat of a win, or somewhat of a draw, or some good result for them in this situation, were absolutely thrashed when Michael Antonio bagged two goals in the 80th and the 84th minute. I think Michael Antonio was terrific the whole game and got the result. He had a really funny celebration too, when he just picked his cardboard cutout and just looked at it, and it was really good of a celebration. So yeah, West Ham convincingly win against Leicester City, owing to a red carded Ayoze Perez. Other results from the EPL this week involved Aston Villa winning convincingly 2-0 over Newcastle with an amazing Danny Ings bicycle kick. I think that Aston Villa were pretty good throughout the game, judging from the highlights because I didn't see the game itself. I think Crystal Palace drew with Brentford 0-0. Leeds United drew with Everton 2-2. Man City thrashed Norwich 5-0 with the first goal from Grealish for Man City. Brighton won thanks to their good system, and also US Bissouma, who was really good this game, judging by the highlights, against Watford 2-0. And Tottenham just scraped a win from Wolves, who were good throughout the night but just missed on the chances they created. And Tottenham just scraped through with that win 1-0. Let's just head over to the Spanish league, the La Liga now, because the last match that I saw this weekend was in the La Liga. Barcelona went away to Athletic Club this time around, and they were pretty much dominated throughout the game, which is funny to say, kind of, because Barcelona have had actually domination over the world in the past 10 years, which faded away, I think, in the latter half of the last decade. But I think that now they are getting a taste of what it's like to be bullied. I think that first half, I think that early in the first half they got a chance real in front of goal, which Brathwaite missed, which should have been buried. I think it was literally in front of the goal, an open net. He could have just buried it anywhere. But sad news for Barcelona is that he skied it over the goal post. And the rest of the game was pretty much after that dominated by Athletic Club. After this point, they pressed really hard off, and especially on the Barcelona backline, who was literally bullied at times. And I think that Eric Garcia especially was really poor this game. And but I think it is kind of understandable, since I heard that his grandfather just passed away, and he got the news just before the game. I think that even though he had a bad outing this time around, it takes immense courage to even participate in the game after hearing such terrible news. The first goal for Athletic Club came in the first half, and through an Inigo Martinez header from a corner. I think that also Eric Garcia was to blame this time around as well, because he should have been with his marker, but instead his marker, Inigo Martinez, that is, managed to just get past him and score the header. And I think Memphis Depay kind of bailed them out this match with a really good weak foot finish in the second half. And it was a really good goal. I think the angle was pretty acute, and he just plummeted it into the back of the net from that acute angle with his weak foot, which counts for a pretty good goal. I think that the night continued to be pretty terrible for Eric Garcia after that too, as he got a straight red after a tackle he made, which was a really rash challenge. And I hope that he recovers from that trauma and performs well in the future games. I think Barcelona was really lucky to scrape even a point of this game, because Athletic Club looked really dominant, and I think they need to bring their A game next week if they need to have a challenge at the title this time around. Other results from the weekend in La Liga involved Real Betis drawing to Cadiz 1-1, Mallorca winning from Alaves 1-0, Valencia grinding a draw from Granada with a 1 each score. Also, Villarreal failed to win against Espanyol from in a 0-0 draw. Real Sociedad won against Rayo Vallecano 1-0. Atletico de Madrid just scraped past Elche 1-0. Levante drew against Real Madrid 3-3, a 10-man Levante that is, which is pretty good. Which is pretty good result from them. Also, Vinicius scored a good goal, if you can believe me, this time around, and his finishing was on point this game. I think he has really worked upon his finishing, which was nice to see. Also, Sevilla won against Getafe 1-0, and Osasuna and Celta Vigo held on to a 0-0 draw. Let's just now get a brief look on the other leagues, other major leagues, the Bundesliga, the Serie A, and the French league this time around. Serie A had their first match day this time around, with Inter Milan beginning with Inter Milan thumping Genoa 4-0 in a comfortable victory. Sassuolo won against Verona 3-2. Lazio won against Empoli 3-1, and Atlanta just managed to win against Torino 2-1. Also, Juventus were held by Udinese in a 2-2 draw, where Cristiano Ronaldo seemed to get a winner on the last minute, but it was deemed offside by VAR. Also, Bologna won against Salernitana 3-2. Roma won against Fiorentina 3-1. Napoli won against Venezia 2-0. Cagliari were held to a draw by Spezia 2-2, and Milan, who were really good the previous season at the start of the Serie A, won against Sampdoria 1-0. In the second match day in Bundesliga, RB Leipzig thumped VfB Stuttgart 4-0. Hertha Berlin lost to Wolfsburg 2-1. Bochum managed to win against Mainz 2-0. Freiburg won against Dortmund, which was a pretty big upset, and it resulted in a 2-1 win for Freiburg. And Eintracht Frankfurt held Augsburg to a draw 0-0, and Fürth drew with Arminia 1-1. Leverkusen won against Mönchengladbach 4-0. Hoffenheim were held to a draw by Union Berlin 2-2, and the defending champions Bayern Munich opened their account in the second match day by winning 3-2 against Köln. In the Ligue 1 this match day around, Lorient managed to win against a powerful Monaco side 1-0. Lille lost to Nice 4-0. PSG won against Strasbourg 4-2, with Mbappe getting his first goal of the season, or should I say last goal for PSG this season, because there are very big rumors flying around by trusted people that he's going to end up at Real Madrid this season. Angers won against Lyon 3-0. Reims were held to a draw actually by Montpellier 3-3. And Nantes managed to win against Metz 2-0. And Clermont Foot won against Troyes 2-0. Brest were held to a draw by Rennes 1 each. Lens managed a draw against Saint Etienne 2 each, and Marseille drew against Bordeaux 2 each. Well, just so you know, the 2021-2022 Champions League group draw has been decided, and it is the following. I think Group A is Manchester City, PSG, Leipzig, and Club Brugge. Group B includes Atletico de Madrid, Liverpool, Porto, and AC Milan. Group C has Sporting Lisbon, Borussia Dortmund, Ajax, and Besiktas. Group D has Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Shakhtar, and Sheriff Tiraspol, who are playing their debut Champions League. Group E includes Bayern Munich and Barcelona. They have a lot of history in the past. Also, the 8-2 result the previous year. It also includes Benfica and Dynamo Kiev. Group F includes Villarreal, Manchester United, who also have a history the previous year, because Villarreal managed to beat Manchester United in the Europa League uh, on penalties. It also includes Atalanta from Italy and Young Boys. Group G includes Lille, Sevilla, Salzburg, and Wolfsburg, and Group H includes Chelsea, Juventus, Zenit, and Malmo. It would be interesting to see the group match between Manchester City and PSG, because according to the rumors, it could become a Messi versus Ronaldo match. So yeah, it would be interesting to see. In cricket this week, I only saw the India versus England Test series happening in England itself. The third Test match started from the 25th August, and it took just 4 days to get us a result. When the coin was tossed for the coin toss, the Indian captain Virat Kohli surprisingly won the toss after 8 failed attempts previously, and decided that he's going to bat first, which sounded like a pretty reasonable choice, seeing that the pitch at Leeds was pretty flattish and gave nowhere near the assistance that the pitches at Nottingham and Lords did previously in the series. So I think it was a pretty good decision, but I think it was a woeful attempt at its execution afterwards, because the Indian team was rolled out for a mere 78 uh, in a situation which could only be described as uh, poor. I think it was a really poor performance from the Indian batting lineup. It started from the first over itself when KR Rahul nicked one to Jimmy Anderson, and it was caught by the wicket keeper. And I think that the first dismissal only was a sign of carelessness that was to come afterwards as well. I think there was no need for him to play that shot because the ball was way outside off. And I think subsequently all the dismissals consider Che Pujara's dismissal, who again got out the same way, nicking one to the slips. Ajinkya Rahane did the same. I think the Rohit Sharma was the only one who was batting sensibly, and even he lost the sense between the middle of this whole collapse and pulled one where it was not meant to. And I think he high scored the Indian batting by scoring a mere 19 runs of around 100 balls. I think as much as I criticize the Indian batting in the first innings, I think that England bowled reasonably well. I think they did not give any loose balls to India aside from Sam Curran, who occasionally does so. I think he's in this team to provide the relaxation to the other team's batsmen, that so that they can score freely. Uh, I think that India were woeful top to bottom in their execution, and here their tail enders were not to save them from this batting collapse, and I think they perished. When England came on to bat in their first innings, their openers Haseeb Hameed and Rory Burns started really well, and subsequently scored 50s each. Then came David Malan, their new one down, instead of Zach Crawley or Haseeb Hameed, who was purported as an opener this game. I think David Malan did a really good job. I think he scored 70 odd and looked really comfortable in leaving the balls outside off and playing the ones who were directed in at the stumps. I think that from him and Joe Root, who came on after him at two down for England and scored a really great century. I think he's making great centuries after great centuries. I think he's in the peak form of his life, and from them, I think the Indian contingent can look to learn something. Root scored 120 odd, and it was a really good century. I think the control rate at which he batted, I don't think I ever saw an edge fly by the slips, or any shot in that whole innings that was miscalculated or mistimed. I think the whole innings was literally perfect, aside from that ball on which he got out from that. And I think that after Joe Root's dismissal, India pretty much got a little bit of sniff to get back into the game. I think that the bowlers pulled it back magnificently from the position we were. I thought it was easily going to be a 500 total, but it only managed to be a 432 one, and I think that it gave us a chance to make amends for the first innings, which, by the looks of it, everyone thought that we had done. I think that early in the first innings for India, Rahul got out again, nicking one to Jimmy Anderson yet again. He struggled a lot, I think, from incoming deliveries this time around. And I think Rohit Sharma again, pick of the batters for India. I think he batted magnificently this time around too, and looked a proper test batsman. And I think everyone who doubted him, he has answered every one of his critics, and not losing patience, and just taking one ball at a time, and not dwelling upon the balls he has missed or edged, has really helped him cope up with these England conditions. And I do really think that Chiteshwar Pujara this time around looked like a resolute man, and I think he was pretty unlucky to miss out on a century after going 91 not out overnight. But as we know, middle order collapses and India are a pair made in heaven. It came on to haunt them in the first session of the fourth day itself, when Chiteshwar Pujara got out early at his overnight score of 91. And then there was a little bit of steadying the ship from Ajinkya Rahane, the vice captain, and Virat Kohli, but I think it was all in vain, as Virat Kohli just looked desperate in the morning session after and before to score runs. I think as he has not scored many runs in the recent past, in the last 2 years, and so he was pretty desperate to look for runs. And in that attempt, he just nicked one again to the slips and got out. And I think Ajinkya Rahane got out the same way, and even Rishabh Pant got out the same. And I think playing your game is one thing, but learning from your previous mistakes is another. And I think that it is good to play your natural game, but if you are not making amends from the same, and keep getting out in the same way, then there is a problem. And I don't think that it should be bagged. These mistakes should not be bagged. His attitude should, but mistakes should not. And India consequently folded out for just 278, getting an innings defeat and 76 runs. So that is it for me for the week. I hope you liked the content, and if you did, you can subscribe or like the video as per. I hope you have a good week ahead, and yeah, let's meet here. Let's hope to meet here next week again on this channel. Bye.